The message arrived on Earth just after sunrise. It came in the form of a shimmering hologram, projected above the United Nations Council table in Geneva. The room was filled with leaders from every nation, military officers in uniform, and a few silent representatives from the Galactic Alliance, tall, graceful beings whose eyes seemed older than time. The hologram carried the symbol of the Galactic Council, a silver spiral star with 1,000 smaller lights orbiting around it. Then a deep, calm voice spoke, translated instantly into dozens of human languages. To the people of Earth, the Jakar frontier burns. We require a diplomatic envoy to negotiate peace. Send your best voices. Send your most patient hearts. This war must end without blood. It was not a request. It was a command wrapped in polite words. Everyone in the room knew about the Jakar. The insectoid warriors had been fighting their neighbors for centuries. They were massive, armored, and feared across half the galaxy. They respected only strength. Yet here was the Council, asking Earth to send diplomats to negotiate with a species that considered words a waste of breath. In the far corner of the room, Lieutenant Colonel Mason Hale watched in silence. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his dark hair cut short, his uniform crisp. Years in the Marines had left his face lined with small scars and his eyes sharp, but his voice, when he chose to use it, was steady and calm. When the Council's hologram faded, the room filled with whispers. "This is not our fight." One minister said, "We should send cultural representatives." Another suggested, "People trained in alien customs." A third voice, sharp and certain, said, "If we send soldiers, the Jakar will see it as a provocation. This must be handled with diplomacy." Hale finally spoke. "And what if their idea of diplomacy is a spear through the chest?" Dozens of eyes turned toward him, some shocked, others angry, but he didn't flinch. He had studied the Jakar. He knew their history. Every peace they had ever agreed to came after proving themselves in battle. No speech had ever stopped their claws. Only respect earned through courage had taught. The Secretary General cleared her throat. "Colonel Hale, are you volunteering for this mission?" Hale didn't hesitate. "I am, and I won't be going alone." 2 days later, the UN's Valiant floated in high orbit above Earth. The massive ship's gray armor gleamed under the sun. Inside, the 1st Marine Expeditionary Unit prepared for departure. Weapons were checked, gear secured, armor plates locked into place. Sergeant Vale ran her hand over the side of her helmet, the black paint chipped from old missions. She was the kind of Marine who could smile in the middle of a firefight, but now her eyes were serious. "This isn't a normal op," she told Corporal Ortega. "We're supposed to be diplomats." Ortega laughed, a low sound. "Sure, and I'm a ballerina." Hale walked past them, hearing every word. He didn't correct them, because they were right. The Galactic Alliance had asked for calm words and peaceful talks. But the Marines weren't built for bowing and nodding. They were built to stand when no one else would. The journey to the Jakar frontier took 8 days. Along the way, the Marines trained in the ship's combat bays. They practiced maneuvers, tested their weapons against moving targets, and drilled formations until every movement was perfect. But Hale also made them study. He had gathered every scrap of intel on Jakar customs, body language, and clan politics. They learned how the warriors showed respect, how their honor duels worked, and how they judged outsiders. "If they test us," Hale told his team, "we don't humiliate them. We show them we can fight and stand our ground, but we don't crush them. This isn't about killing. It's about proving we're worth talking to." The Marines listened. They trusted him. Most of them had served under Hale before, and they knew he didn't waste words. If he said this was the way, it was the way. On the 8th day, the Valiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Before them hung the Jakar moon, a barren world with a thin atmosphere and a jagged surface of gray stone. Enormous bones jutted from the ground, some the size of buildings. The sky was dark and heavy, filled with swirling black clouds. Alliance diplomats were waiting on an orbital station above the moon. They watched in confusion as the Valiant docked and its airlock opened, revealing not robed negotiators, but a squad of Marines in full combat armor, rifles slung across their chests. Ambassador Rethkel, a tall, thin alien with skin like glass, stepped forward. His voice was careful. There seems to be a misunderstanding. The Jakar are expecting a delegation, not soldiers. Hale adjusted his armor's chest plate. We are the delegation. The ambassador blinked. Colonel Hale, the council wanted dialogue. Hale's tone was steady. We'll have dialogue. We'll just make sure they listen. Behind him, Sergeant Vale and Ortega exchanged a glance. They knew the moment they set foot on that moon, things could go very wrong. But none of them hesitated. This was why they were here. The drop to the moon's surface was fast and rough. Their landing craft touched down on a flat stretch of stone, surrounded by jagged cliffs. The air was thin and cold, and the wind carried a faint metallic scent. The Jakar were waiting. They were even larger than the Marines expected, each one standing over 3 meters tall, their bodies armored in black and crimson plates that caught the pale light. Their mandibles clicked in slow, deliberate movements. The leader, High Talon Krithak, stepped forward, his eyes glowing like embers. You send warriors, not talkers, Krithak said, his deep voice carrying across the wind. Do you challenge us? Hale stepped forward, meeting that burning gaze without fear. We send people who can finish what they start. The Jakar leader tilted his head, studying him for a long moment. Then, with a sound like grinding stone, Krithak spoke again. Then we speak in the old way. The Marines didn't know exactly what that meant, but from the way the Jakar warriors began to circle, weapons in hand, they understood. Enough. This was going to be one hell of a negotiation. The circle of Jakar warriors closed in slowly. Their armor plates clinked against each other with a sound like knives being sharpened. Each one carried a long, jagged spear that shimmered faintly in the pale light of the moon. The ground beneath the Marines' boots was rough and uneven, small stones rolling away under their weight. Sergeant Vale kept her eyes moving, watching every alien's position. Feels like they're sizing us up, she muttered over the comms. Hale's voice came back calm. Good. Let them see us. High Talon, Krithak stepped forward again. Your people are young in the stars. Your words are untested. Your courage is unknown. You will face the trial of blades. If you stand, we will speak. Hale didn't break eye contact. And if we don't, Krithak's mandibles twitched into something that might have been a smile. Then you will not leave this moon. The Marines knew this wasn't a joke. The Jakar weren't bluffing. In their culture, failure in a trial was the same as admitting you were unworthy of respect, and the unworthy didn't deserve to live. The trial began without warning. 2 Jakar leaped forward, moving far faster than their size suggested. Their spears slashed through the air, aimed at Vale and Ortega. Vale dropped low, her training kicking in. She rolled under the first strike, came up behind her opponent, and hooked her arm around the shaft of his spear. With a twist, she wrenched it free. The alien stumbled, surprised by her speed. Ortega was different. He didn't try to overpower his opponent directly. He sidestepped, letting the spear graze past him, then used his rifle's butt to strike the alien's knee joint. The Jakar roared, spinning to counter, but Ortega was already gone, moving to flank. Around the circle, other Marines were engaging in similar clashes. Every move was calculated. They had to show strength without killing. This was not a battle to win with bodies on the ground. It was a battle to win with control. Hale stood still at first, watching 2 warriors advanced toward him, their mandibles clicking in an intimidating rhythm. Hale let them come. At the last second, he sidestepped the first spear, grabbed it by the shaft, and used the alien's momentum to pull him forward into the second. Both warriors stumbled, weapons clashing against each other instead of him. He didn't follow up with a strike. Instead, he stepped back, keeping his hands open and his stance firm. In Jacar culture, showing that you could kill, but choosing not to was a sign of high discipline. Hale was counting on that. The trial dragged on for almost half an hour. The Marines adapted quickly, shifting tactics after each exchange. Vale used agility, Ortega used precision. Others used teamwork, moving in pairs to trap their opponents without causing serious injury. By the end, the Jacar were breathing heavily, their armor scuffed and dented. The Marines were sweating, their own armor scratched, but every single one of them was still standing. Krithak raised a clawed hand, and the warriors stepped back. The wind swept across the stone ground, carrying the metallic temps of Jacar blood. "You stand," Krithak said, his voice louder now, "and you do not kill needlessly. You fight with honor." Hale gave a small nod. "We came to talk, but we talk best with people who know we can stand beside them." The Jacar leader gestured toward the jagged cliffs in the distance. "You have passed the first trial. The next will test not your strength, but your will," Vale muttered, under her breath. "Great. That was the easy part." Hale didn't answer. His eyes stayed on Krithak. He knew this was only. The sound grew louder with every passing second. At first it was a low vibration in the ground, like distant thunder. Then it became a roar, deep, steady, and filled with menace. The Marines and Jacar warriors turned toward the horizon. As the morning haze thinned, dark shapes cut through the pale light, their outlines jagged and unfamiliar. Sergeant Vale narrowed her eyes. "Those aren't Jacar ships." Krithak's gaze hardened. "Pirates, carrion feeders, who come when they smell weakness." The approaching fleet was small but dangerous. 6 fast skiffs, bristling with weapons, and 1 heavy gunship painted in streaks of rust and black. The skull symbols on their hulls were universal enough that no translation was needed. "They must have been watching from the edge of your territory," Hale said, waiting for the right moment. Krithak's mandibles clicked sharply. "They think our trials have left us exposed." Vale checked the safety on her rifle. "They're about to find out they're wrong." The basin erupted into movement. Jacar warriors grabbed their long spears and jagged swords, their armor plates locking into battle form. The Marines moved just as fast, snapping on helmets, loading fresh magazines, and running checks on their armor's targeting systems. Krithak gave Hale a quick, fierce look. "We defend this place together." Hale nodded. Side by side, the pirates were coming in low, their engines kicking up dust clouds that rolled across the basin floor. The lead skiffs opened fire first, their cannons spitting bright streams of energy into the cliffs. Rock exploded into shards, showering the defenders. "Cover the left ridge," Hale ordered over the comms. Vale took half her squad up the slope, using natural rock spines for cover. Ortega moved right, setting up a portable turret in a narrow gap. The first wave hit fast. 3 skiffs dived toward the basin, firing wildly. The Jacar hurled long, bladed javelins with incredible force. One pierced straight through the cockpit of a skiff, sending it spinning into the ground in a plume of fire and dust. On the left ridge, Vale's team returned fire in short, sharp bursts. Energy bolts ripped across the air, some hitting armor, others finding weak spots. Private Jensen scored his first confirmed hit, taking out a gunner who had been pinning the Jacar below. On the right, Ortega's turret chewed through another skiff's armor. It spun out, hit the basin floor, and split in 2. The surviving pirate scrambled out, only to be met by a charging Jacar warrior, whose claws ended the fight in seconds. Then the heavy gunship came. It hovered at the basin's edge like a predator, its forward cannons glowing hot. A single blast from those cannons struck the pillar at the basin's center, shattering ancient stone and sending chunks crashing to the ground. Krithak roared in fury. "They defile our sacred place." Haley didn't waste time. Vale, Ortega, we take that gunship out now. Vale's voice crackled back. You got a plan? Yeah, Hale said. Hit it hard. Hit it close. The Marines moved quickly, weaving through the basin's uneven ground to get within range. Vale's squad laid down suppressing fire, keeping the gunship's side gunners ducked down. Ortega grabbed a magnetic charge from his pack, sprinting low and fast toward a rocky outcrop just meters from the ship. The gunship's engines whined as it tried to back away, but the Jacker warriors weren't letting it go. Two of them leaped onto its hull, stabbing their spears into the armor and holding on as the ship bucked in midair. Ortega planted the magnetic charge beneath the ship's right engine pod. Charge set, he called out, diving for cover. Do it, Hale barked. The explosion ripped through the air. The engine pod tore free, spinning away in flames. The gunship dropped hard, smashing into the basin floor with a sound that echoed off the cliffs. Smoke poured from its vents as the remaining pirates scrambled to escape. For a moment, there was silence, then a loud, metallic scream from above. Another skiff had broken through, racing straight toward the Marines' position. Its forward guns blazed, cutting deep scars into the ground. Jensen froze for a heartbeat, his weapon half raised. Hale saw it. He ran, shoving Jensen to the ground, just as a cannon blast scorched the air where the young Marine had been standing. You okay? Hale shouted. Jensen's voice was shaky, but steady. Yeah, sir. Hale helped him up, gripping his shoulder. Then get back in the fight. The last of the pirates tried to retreat. One skiff fired a desperate volley to cover the others, but the Jacker were faster. Krethke hurled his spear in a long, perfect arc. It struck the skiff's engine, and the craft exploded mid-air. The surviving pirates fled into the haze, engines screaming. No one chased them. The basin was littered with debris, smoke, and the faint crackle of cooling metal. When the dust settled, Marines and Jackar stood together among the wreckage. Some tended to the wounded, others retrieved weapons and supplies. The air smelled of scorched metal and ozone. Krithak walked to Hale. For the first time, the High Talon gave a deep, formal bow. The kind Jacker only gave two equals. You fight with more than strength, Krithak said. You fight with loyalty. You protect those who stand beside you. Hale's voice was low. That's the only way we know how. The High Talon's mandibles clicked softly, almost like a chuckle. Then perhaps, humans are not so young as the Council believes. But before they could speak further, Krithak's second-in-command hurried over, his armor still streaked with soot. High Talon, a message from the Council outpost. The pirates were not acting alone. They were paid. Hale's eyes narrowed. By who? The warrior hesitated. By someone inside the Galactic Alliance. The words hung in the cold morning air. For the first time since they landed, Hale saw something in Krithak's gaze that looked like fear. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a border skirmish anymore. It was bigger. Much bigger. The basin was still scarred from the battle. Smoke curled from the wreckage of pirate ships, and the broken pillar of stone lay in jagged pieces across the cold ground. The sun was higher now, but its weak light did little to warm the air. Marines and Jackar moved among the debris, collecting weapons, checking wounded, and speaking in quiet voices. Lieutenant Colonel Hale stood with High Talon Krithak near the largest fire. The heat barely touched them, but the conversation ahead promised more heat than the flames could give. Krithak's second-in-command, Talavik, repeated his report. The pirates were hired by someone within the Galactic Alliance. The payment trail is hidden, but the signature is familiar. Hale's jaw tightened. Who? Talavik glanced between the two leaders. An ambassador, one who has argued against your presence here since you arrived, Rethkal of the Crystal Dominion. Vale, standing nearby, swore under her breath. The same one who met us at the station. Krithak's mandibles clicked sharply. If this is true, then The Alliance sends us peace envoys, while planting knives in our backs. Hale stared into the fire. The Council's request for diplomats made more sense now. Maybe it was never about peace at all. Maybe they had sent humans here hoping they'd fail, so the Jacker would turn against them. The pirate attack could have been the final push to shatter any chance of an alliance. Colonel, Vale said quietly, if the Alliance is behind this, we can't just sit here. Hale looked up. No, we can't. But we can't shout accusations without proof either. They'd spin it against us. Krithak stepped closer. What do you propose? Hale's voice was steady. We need to find the source of the payment trail. That means getting access to the Alliance relay hub in this sector. Talavek tilted his head. That hub is guarded. No one enters without council clearance. Then we'll go in without clearance, Hale said simply. Krithak studied him for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. The Jacker will help. If the Alliance believes they can play us against each other, they will learn otherwise. Vale grinned faintly. Finally, we're on the same team. That night, the two groups planned together for the first time. They spread maps and holoscans across the flat rock floor of a cavern. The relay hub was located on a small moon, 2 systems away, orbiting a frozen gas giant. It was defended by automated turrets, security drones, and a small Alliance garrison. Hale outlined the plan. We'll insert a small strike team, Marines and Jakar mixed. We get in, slice into their data core, and get the proof. We're not here to fight the garrison unless we have to. Krithak's deep voice rumbled. The Jakar will send 3 of our best hunters. Vale leaned over the map. We'll need a distraction to get past those turrets. Talarvik tapped one claw against the hala. Our ships can draw their fire for a short time, but not for long. Once you are inside, we will hold the skies. Hale looked around the cavern. We move at first light. When the morning came, frost coated the basin in a thin silver layer. The strike team gathered at the landing craft. Marines doubled their rifles and sidearms. Jakar warriors adjusted the bladed gauntlets on their forearms, their armor gleaming in the pale light. Jensen, still the youngest of the Marines, shifted nervously. Vale stepped beside him. First time on a covert op. First time with aliens watching my back, he admitted. Vale's voice softened. They'll fight just as hard for you as we will. That's the point of this mission. The smaller shuttle carried them through the void in silence. Outside the windows, the frozen moon grew larger, a pale sphere with a surface cracked like glass. The relay hub was a dark shape on the horizon, built into the ice like a wound. Krithak's lead hunter Varlock. The Valiant dropped out of warp above the Galactic Alliance capital world, Ori's Prime. The planet glittered beneath them, a world of towering crystal cities and rivers that shone like silver threads. To anyone else, it was a sight of wonder. To the Marines, it was the enemy's nest. Lieutenant Colonel Hale stood on the bridge, arms folded, eyes locked on the massive spire at the planet's center. The council hall. We've got one shot, he said quietly to Vale and Ortega. If they bury this, everything we've done means nothing. Krithak stood beside him, his towering form casting a long shadow across the deck. The Jacques will stand with you. But understand, once this is revealed, they may try to destroy us both. That's the plan, Hale replied. The shuttle ride down to the council hall was tense. Marines in polished armor sat shoulder to shoulder with Jacker hunters, their weapons holstered but close. Vale kept the data core clutched to her chest, like it was the most fragile thing in the galaxy. You nervous? Ortega asked. Terrified, she admitted. But I'd rather be scared with the truth in my hands than safe without it. Krithak let out a low, approving click. Fear keeps the mind sharp. The council hall was an ocean of light and sound. Dozens of species filled the circular chamber, their voices blending into a constant hum. In the center, the council table gleamed, each seat occupied by a representative draped in ceremonial colors. Ambassador Rethkol sat near the center, his crystalline skin catching the light, his eyes cold as ice. He smiled when he saw the humans. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Colonel Hale," Rethko said, his voice smooth. "The humans return. I hope your field trip was enlightening." Hale stepped forward. "Enlightening? Sure. We learned the Alliance is paying pirates to attack their own allies." The room fell silent. One of the senior counselors, a tall being with flowing silver robes, narrowed his eyes. "That is a serious accusation." Vale stepped to the center, activating the data core. Holographic projections filled the air, payment transfers, encrypted orders, Alliance security seals. The evidence spun slowly for all to see. "This," Vale said, "is the truth." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Some counselors whispered to each other in shock. Others glared at the humans as if they were the criminals. Rethkel's smile didn't falter. "Forgery. Humans are clever with machines. You could have fabricated this too." Krithak slammed his clawed hand on the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "Enough. I have fought beside them. I have seen the proof with my own eyes. This is no lie." A counselor from the Tharvan species leaned forward. "If this is real, it is treason at the highest level." Another, a scaled diplomat from Voss, hissed. "And if it is not, the humans will have committed a grave insult to this council." Hale's voice was steady, but his eyes burned. "I don't care what you call it. The pirates killed civilians. They tried to frame the Jacker, and your ambassador Rethkel signed the orders." The crystal-skinned ambassador rose slowly. "Colonel Hale, you have overstepped. Humans were invited here to speak, not to threaten." "You sent for diplomats," Hale said. "Earth sent the first Marines. We don't bluff." A murmur spread through the hall. Some counselors shifted in their seats, clearly unsettled. Rethkel's expression hardened. "Then perhaps the council should reconsider humanity's place among us." The silver-robed counselor raised a hand. "We will adjourn for deliberation. The humans and the Jackar will remain here under guard until the vote is cast." Immediately, security drones floated into the chamber, weapons aimed. Vale whispered, "They're stalling. They're going to try and erase the data." Hale's jaw tightened. "Not on my watch." Krithak's eyes flicked to his hunters. Without a word, they spread out subtly, positioning themselves between the Marines and the drones. "Colonel," Ortega muttered, "you're thinking about doing something stupid." "Not stupid," Hale said. "Necessary." In one smooth motion, Hale drew his sidearm and shot the nearest drone's weapon clean off. The room erupted in chaos, shouts, alarms, counselors scrambling. "Vale, get that data into the public." "Net," Hale barked. She dropped to one knee, jacking the core into her wrist console. "Working on it." Security guards rushed forward, but Krithak's hunters met them head-on, forcing them back without drawing lethal blows. Ortega and Jensen formed a wall around Vale. The holograms above the council hall shifted. Instead of spinning slowly, for the counselors, they now streamed across every public channel in the Alliance. News feeds lit up. Civilian terminals chimed with alerts. Billions of beings saw the truth in real time. Vale looked up, breathless. "It's done." Composure cracked. His crystalline hands clenched into fists. "You've doomed yourselves, human." Hale holstered his weapon. "No, we just made sure the whole galaxy knows who tried to doom us." The counselors shouted over each other, some demanding arrests, others calling for Rethkel's immediate removal. The chamber was no longer united. Power had shifted. Krithak stepped close to Hale, his voice low. "You have made powerful enemies today." Hale gave a thin smile. "We've faced worse." From across the chamber, the silver-robed counselor's voice rang out above the chaos. "This council will investigate. Until then, Ambassador Rethkel is suspended from duty. The humans will remain under observation." Hale nodded once. "Observation is fine. Just remember, we'll be watching you too. As the session broke apart in disorder, Vale leaned toward Hale. They're not going to forgive us for this. They don't have to, Hale replied. They just have to know we're not pawns. Outside Ari's primes, crystal spires shone under the sunlight. But for the first time, cracks were showing in the perfect image of the Alliance. And the humans underestimated, unwanted, and unafraid, had put those cracks there. The Marines were given guest quarters in one of Ori's prime's floating towers. The room had glass walls, showing the glittering skyline. From a distance, it looked peaceful, too peaceful. Hale stood by the window, scanning the sky. They're not going to wait for the investigation, he said quietly. They'll move against us tonight. Vale was pacing. We just humiliated one of the most powerful ambassadors in the Alliance. He won't let that slide. Krythak rumbled in agreement. Shakar tradition says, when you wound a predator, you prepare for the counterattack. Ortega sat cleaning his rifle. Good thing we brought guns to a diplomat party. By nightfall, the city's bright towers faded into deep blues and silvers. The humans in Jaka were supposed to be under observation, but no guards were posted outside their door. That was the first bad sign. Vale froze by the table console. Colonel, my wrist console just got locked out of the Alliance network. Hale didn't look surprised. They're isolating us. Jensen checked the air vents. Thermals. We've got multiple signatures moving through the ducts. Krythak's claws flexed. Assassins. The first attack came fast. The glass wall suddenly darkened, and black armored figures rappelled down from above. At the same time, the door blew inward, sending shards across the room. Hale dove behind the couch, pulling Vale with him. Ortega and Jensen opened fire, using stun rounds to keep from killing. For now, Krythak's hunters roared, charging at the attackers with bone-edged weapons. The assassins moved like shadows, silent and precise. But the Marines weren't diplomats, and they weren't prey. Hale slammed one into the wall, disarming him, and tossing the weapon to Vale. Vale's hands shook, but she aimed at the vent and fired just as another assassin emerged. I got him, she shouted, more surprised than proud. Don't get cocky, Hale warned, blocking a blade with his forearm guard. The fight was short, brutal, and loud. When the last assassin dropped, Hale didn't waste time. We move now. They'll send more. Krythak pointed to the nearest service hatch. I know the underways. We can vanish into the city. The underways of Ori's prime were nothing like the shining towers above. Down here, the air was damp, and the walls dripped with condensation. The hum of machinery echoed through the tunnels. Vale's boots splashed in shallow water as she kept pace with the others. Colonel, she whispered, why kill us instead of just expelling us? Because, if we disappear, there's no public scandal, Hale said. They can blame it on pirates again. Jensen kept glancing over his shoulder. We've got company, fast movers, Krythak growled. They will not stop until one of us is dead. They emerged into a small hangar carved into the side of the tower. Inside was a single transport skimmer, its hull marked with the Alliance's diplomatic crest. Vale frowned. You think it's a trap? Hale checked the controls. Oh, it's definitely a trap. But it's also the fastest way out. Ortega grinned. I like traps. Means they underestimate us. Krythak and his hunters loaded in first. Vale sat at the nav console, fingers flying over the controls. Engines online, plotting course to the Valiant. The hangar doors began to open too slowly. Through the widening gap, Vale saw them. 3 black pursuit craft lifting from the shadows below. Ah, Colonel, they're here. Punch it, Hale ordered. The skimmer shot out into the night sky, engines screaming. The pursuit craft followed instantly, weapons flashing. Beams of blue energy cut through the air, striking dangerously close. Jensen manned the rear turret, returning fire. They're hurting us, Hale gritted his teeth. They want us away. From the public districts. Less witnesses. Vale glanced at the navigation display. Colonel, there's a freight tunnel ahead. It leads straight into the old industrial zone. Hale looked at Krythak. The Valiant drifted silently through the dark space near Ori's Prime, engines low, lights dimmed. The crew gathered on the bridge, their faces tense. Every sensor and readout had gone quiet after the mysterious pursuer vanished. No communication from the Alliance. No warning, only the knowledge that something larger, colder, and far more dangerous was watching them. Hale clenched the edge of the console. Whatever hit us, it's not Alliance, it's not pirates, and it's not This is something new. Krythak's eyes, dark and reflective, scanned the void. It hunts without reason, it strikes with purpose. It is a predator the likes of which even my people fear. Vale crossed her arms, trying to hide her unease. So, we're basically sitting ducks. Hale's jaw tightened. Not sitting, observing, planning. We've done worse than this before. The data core still hummed with the proof from the relay hub. Vale kept it close, her hands almost never leaving it. Colonel, she said, her voice low, the Alliance will try to bury this, but whoever this is, they'll try to erase it entirely. Then we stop them, Hale said simply, before they even touch Ori's Prime. Jensen swallowed hard, glancing nervously at the Jacker hunters standing silently behind the crew. Stop. A predator. How? Hale met his eyes. With our heads. And a little bit of human stubbornness. The sensors suddenly flared, showing a massive vessel moving toward them. Its design was alien even to the Alliance, jagged, asymmetrical, with pulsating dark energy coursing along its hull. No flags, no markings. It simply appeared, moving with terrifying speed and precision. Krythak's claws flexed. It is close to close. They know you carry proof. They have followed, Vale whispered. It's huge. What do we do? Hale looked around the bridge. We fight smart. We're not just Marines. We're humans. That's our advantage. Thinking, when others expect fear. Ortega grinned, the first real smile since the hunt began. I like thinking humans. The ship's weapons activated. Energy arcs flared against the Valiant's shields, sending sparks across the bridge. Alarms blared. Crews scrambled. Jensen's hands shook as he manned a turret. Return fire, Hale shouted. Target the nodes along its hull, weak spots. Not the whole thing. The Marines and Jacker worked together flawlessly. Krythak's hunters leaped into the corridors, preparing for boarding if necessary. Vale manipulated the Valiant's auxiliary weapons, firing precise volleys that grazed the alien ship's surface and disrupted its energy flow. The Predator ship adjusted, its hull morphing as if alive. It was smart, fast, adaptive. Yet the humans didn't panic. Every move, every command, showed coordination and determination, something even the alien hadn't expected. Hale realized the truth mid-battle. It learns from fear. We can't show it fear. Vale glanced at him. Then we fight like we're not afraid. Exactly, Hale said. We fight like humans. Jensen opened fire with new confidence, predicting the arcs and evading the enemy's countermeasures. Ortega moved through the weapons console, redirecting power to shield the weaker sections of the ship. Krythak guided the hunters in synchrony, cutting off any attempts at boarding. The fight was tense and cinematic. Pulses of energy lit the bridge, shadows danced on the walls, and the Valiant's hull groaned under stress. But humans adapted. In ways the alien could not anticipate, improvising paths, predicting patterns, and making sacrifices where logic alone would fail. Vale found a weak point in the alien's energy core. Colonel, if we can breach this section, we can force it to retreat. Hale's eyes narrowed. Do it, but we go in close. The Valiant dove toward the glowing core, weaving through enemy fire. The Jacar hunters held off boarding attempts with deadly efficiency. Vale fired the breach charge directly into the node. Sparks and dark energy flared, shaking the Predator ship violently. It screeched, a sound that wasn't quite mechanical, not quite organic. Then, surprisingly, it pulled back. Its massive hull twisted in a retreat pattern and vanished into the dark. Silence followed, heavy, tense, and electric with adrenaline. The crew exhaled as one. Vale slumped into a chair. Is it gone? Hale shook his head slowly. Gone for now. But it knows we're here. And it knows we're dangerous. Krythak's claws tapped against the console. The predators of space respect strength. You have earned that respect in moments. Jensen blinked, still catching his breath. By being alive. Hale smiled faintly. By being human. The data core still contained the relay hub proof, intact. Hale looked at Vale. This is bigger than anyone in the Alliance realizes. The Council, Rethkel, these pirates, they're pieces of a bigger game. And now we know the Predator is playing too. Krythak's eyes glinted. Then it seems your species has a gift, not just courage, but ingenuity. Something even predators must reckon with. Ortega leaned against the console, exhausted, but grinning. You mean stubbornness? Hale laughed, tense, but genuine. That too. The bridge crew stared at the stars beyond Ori's prime, feeling the weight of the galaxy pressing in. Every system seemed peaceful, shining, orderly. But underneath, shadows moved, conspiracies stirred, and predators watched. Yet in the midst of it all, humans, young, underestimated, stubborn, had survived, adapted, and turned fear into action. They had exposed corruption, fought against impossible odds, and faced the Predator without flinching. Vale whispered, almost to herself, maybe humans are exactly what the galaxy needs. Hale looked at her, eyes fierce. Maybe we're exactly what the galaxy fears. Krythak rumbled something in his throat that sounded like agreement, or maybe amusement. In either case, it carried weight. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and they would not make that mistake again. The stars stretched on, infinite and indifferent, but the humans aboard the Valiant felt something else. Determination, courage, and a stubborn spark no enemy could ever extinguish. Hale's voice broke the quiet. Let's show them what humans are capable of. And for the first time, the Valiant didn't just move through space. It moved through destiny, carrying a species that refused to bow, refused to break, and refused to be underestimated. The Valiant cut through the void, every crew member tense. The stars outside were calm, but inside the ship, nerves crackled like electricity. Hale paced the bridge, running simulations in his mind. They knew the Predator had retreated, but it hadn't given up. Its intelligence was frightening. It learned, adapted, and struck with precision. Vale stayed close to the data core. Colonel, the relay proof. If the Predator gets that, the Alliance could be blamed for nothing, and the galaxy will fall back into chaos. Hale's jaw clenched. We don't give it that chance. We go on the offensive. Krythak's claws rumbled against the console. You propose to hunt a creature that stalks the void itself. Hale met the towering warrior's gaze. Yes, and we'll use what humans have that even predators don't expect. Improvisation, unpredictability, and heart. They approached the shadow sector, a cluster of dead stars and drifting wreckage where sensors were unreliable. The Predator waited there, patient and calculated. Hale's plan was simple on paper, but deadly in execution. Draw it into a narrow asteroid field, where its size and speed would be a disadvantage, and then hit the core with coordinated strikes from both humans and Jacker hunters. Sounds like suicide, Ortega muttered, checking his weapon. Hale smiled faintly. Sounds like a human problem, doesn't it? The ambush began quietly. The Valiant weaved between floating rock and metallic debris, engines humming low. Vale monitored the sensors. Multiple signatures approaching. It's engaging. The Predator emerged from the shadows, massive and alive-looking, its hull pulsating with energy. It moved faster than anything the crew had ever seen, cutting through asteroids with terrifying precision. Jensen swallowed hard. "We're gonna get crushed," Krythak growled. "Do not fear. Use the environment. Strike together." Hale barked orders. "Turrets, focus fire on the nodes near its engines. Vale, guide the ship closer to the asteroid cluster. Ortega, cover the flanks." The Predator reacted instantly, firing arcs of dark energy that scorched asteroids into fragments. Debris flew past the Valiant, shaking the ship. The humans and Jacker stayed focused, moving as one unit, predicting the Predator's adaptive strikes. Every maneuver seemed to anticipate the alien, yet the humans improvised, changing course at the last moment. Drawing the Predator further into the field, Krythak leaped into the observation deck's side hatch, his hunters ready to board if necessary. "Prepare yourselves. It learns quickly, but it cannot learn heart." Vale's voice was sharp overcomes. "We're inside the trap zone." Now, asteroids pressed in from every side. The Predator lunged, attempting to crush the Valiant against the floating rocks. Hale's fingers danced over the controls, sliding between massive boulders. Ortega fired precise bursts from the side turret, blasting smaller fragments to create obstacles. Jensen focused on turret fire, keeping the Predator distracted. It was chaos, noise, and energy, yet there was a rhythm, a human rhythm. Improvisation met precision, courage met cunning, and the Predator had no idea what to expect next. Vale spotted the weak point. "Colonel, engine core, right side shield, pulses are dropping." Hale nodded. "Varlock, Krythak, prepare to board." The Jacker hunters launched grappling harpoons, attaching themselves to the Predator's hull. Krythak led the boarding, claws and gauntlets tearing through the alien armor. Inside, it was almost organic, a network of pulsating conduits and the Valiant drifted in orbit above Ori's prime, its hull battered but its spirit unbroken. The crew had survived attacks from pirates, corrupt ambassadors, and a Predator intelligence beyond comprehension. The stars outside were calm, but inside, tension and triumph mixed like fire and ice. Hale stood at the bridge window, arms folded, staring at the crystal towers below. "We've exposed the Council's corruption. We've defeated the Predator. But this is only the beginning." Vale, still clutching the data core, shook her head. "Colonel, the galaxy isn't going to forgive what we've done. They'll try to bury us, silence us, or even hunt us down." Hale's eyes were sharp. "Let them try. We have proof. And proof travels faster than fear." Krythak stepped forward, towering over the humans. "I have observed your species closely. You fight, you adapt, and you endure. Even when the odds are impossible, you persist." Jensen swallowed. "We just stayed alive." Krythak's mandibles clicked in amusement. "No. You used your weakness being underestimated as your strength. That is genius." Ortega grinned. "So being annoying actually helps." Hale smirked. "In the right way, yes. Humans have a stubbornness aliens can't calculate, and that's why we survive." The data core still glowed with the proof from the relay hub. Vale connected it to the Valiant's long-range transmitter. Hull and airfaces flickered to life, sending encrypted streams to every system in the Alliance. Images, transactions, orders, signatures. Evidence that would be impossible to dismiss. Krythak's eyes narrowed. "The Council will crumble under this." "Good," Hale said. "But I want more than just crumbling. I want change. We don't just survive. We set an example." The Predator's presence remained a threat. Sensors showed it lingering at the edge of the system, observing, calculating. But the humans had learned something critical. It feared unpredictability, courage, and coordinated action traits it could not anticipate. Hale tapped his fingers on the console. "The Predator didn't expect us to fight together, human and Jackar as one. That's how we win. That's how we survive. Vale smiled faintly. By thinking differently. By not being predictable. Jensen shook his head, awed. We did all of that, and we're still alive. Hale looked at him. Yes, because we're humans. The council responded quickly. Rethkel was suspended permanently. Other corrupt ambassadors resigned under the weight of public exposure. The Alliance scrambled to repair its image, but the message was clear. Humans were no longer diplomats to be tested, no longer pawns to be manipulated. Krithak's hunters loomed over the bridge. Your species has shown courage and cunning beyond expectation. The Predator will learn, and so will the galaxy. Ortega chuckled. I'd like to see it try. A message came in, blinking across the console. It was an encrypted invitation to the new intergalactic summit. This time, humans would attend not as envoys, not as soldiers disguised, but as equals. Hale leaned back. We didn't ask for diplomacy. We didn't ask for allies. But we got respect, and that's worth more than gold. Vale nodded, and the Predator. Hale looked out into the stars, where shadows still lurked. It's out there, waiting, learning, but it'll think twice next time. Humanity is not easy prey. The crew stood together, human and Jakar alike. They had been tested, hunted, betrayed, and challenged. They had faced chaos, cunning enemies, and cosmic predators. Yet through every trial, they survived, not because they were the strongest, not because they were the smartest, but because they refused to give up, refused to be predictable, and refused to be underestimated. Grithek's voice rumbled across the bridge. Perhaps the galaxy does not yet understand humans, but it will, and when it does, it will know caution. Hale's hand rested lightly on Vale's shoulder. We've shown them a little of what humans are capable of. The rest, they'll have to figure out for themselves. As the Valiant prepared to leave orbit, the crew looked down at Ori's Prime one last time. Its towers glimmered in the sunlight, a symbol of beauty and order, and now, of a lesson learned. Humans cannot be underestimated, Vale whispered, almost to herself. We didn't just survive, we changed the game. Hale smiled, eyes reflecting the stars. We always do. That's humanity. Krithak rumbled, a sound that seemed almost like respect. Then, perhaps the galaxy has not yet seen the full measure of humans. Hale's gaze swept the endless void. No, it hasn't, and it never will forget it. The Valiant jumped into warp, disappearing among the stars. The galaxy stretched, infinite and indifferent, filled with dangers, conspiracies, and predators. But one truth now shone brighter than any crystal tower, louder than any council, stronger than any shadow. Humans endure, humans adapt, humans rise, and somewhere out among the stars, the galaxy realized, for all its wonders, all its advanced species, all its cunning predators, humans were not to be underestimated. Hale's final words, whispered as the warp drive roared, lingered in the silence of space. We are human, and we always find a way. The story ends on that defiant, awe-inspiring note. Humanity victorious, respected, and feared, not through brute force alone, but through ingenuity, courage, and unwavering determination.